possible. So the ideal scenario, it's clear because we've earned less in Dunes than in Underground Sea so far. Obviously variance plays a part, but I would say it's considerably less, to the point where it's very noticeable. Density is king. If you can increase the density of your maps with Beyond on them, you will earn more tainted currency, and as a result multiply that value even further, which is really what you want to be doing, and get even more currency and bang for your buck. Alright, next thing I want to talk a little bit about is going to be acquisition methods. So we've already talked about the compasses, which is definitely well worth it right now. You can see the return on investment, even in Dunes, has been very, very nice. So far in our 48 maps, we've got, a revenue of 677, which is, a pretty good return. That's almost double our money back already on the Dunes that we've ran with Beyond. So it's definitely still worth running. You get all the free monsters, you get the money back, you make money. It's a compass which is well worth its spot on your void stones. Alright, let's talk a little bit about acquisition methods though. So there's two different avenues that you can go about getting Beyond. There's the compass, which is pretty damn good. Definitely well worth it right now at this 20 to 30C price point, 20C especially. But there's also hard rolling it on your maps. Now, the compasses give you 4 charges and are 30C right now, but using Alk and Scours, it's going to cost you 9C to roll Beyond, which is, okay, pretty tedious, pretty annoying, but you can do it. Now, this is essentially going to be less worth it, but it will set an absolute floor of Beyond at 40C, which is basically 9C per map that you roll. Now, if you increase it to 40C, or well, technically right now it's 36C, you can see that even with Alkin going it, Alkin rolling it, or whatever you want, you're still making considerable amounts of money, which is pretty interesting, meaning Beyond is going to retain its position as the premier juicing mechanic and the premier profitability mechanic of multiplying your loot in maps. Now, obviously the tainted currencies could go down in price and all sorts of stuff like that, but right now Beyond seems like an auto-include in every high-end strategy. Let's talk about some interesting findings here. Now, this is by no means concrete. It's completely anecdotal and also just based off a low sample size of 148 maps here. But let's talk a little bit about tainted currencies. So when you're looking at tainted currencies, they're kind of in a vacuum. They drop and they're only from Beyond, and you can very easily see how many are dropping of each different type. And you can actually start to construct a chance that you'll get each different currency. So I decided that I'd grab my 2 experiments here, 148 Dunes, and I'd see what percentage of my tainted currencies were each types. And you can kind of see a very clear pattern here. It looks like the Chaos Orb is anywhere between 0.5 to 1% of all tainted currencies you drop. The Mythic Orbs seem somewhere in the ballpark of 2% to 3% of the tainted currencies you drop, so you should get, 3 Mythic Orbs or 2 Mythic Orbs every 100 tainted currencies you drop, and then you can see the distribution of the others, and it seems quite consistent. Now, I didn't drop any of the Divine Teardrops or the Tainted Exalted Orbs. They obviously are exceptionally rare, but this definitely does seem quite interesting, and I think it's quite fun to see the results of this, meaning Beyond is not only a massive, awesome multiplier to your loot, and you can juice it up even more and do all sorts of stuff like that, but it's also very consistent. You're going to be getting the same amount of tainted currencies over a large sample size of maps. As always, it's not a gamble. You will get money, and you will get what's on the tin, which is pretty damn good. So all of these maps will run without Atlas passives allocated though, because I was a little bit skeptical that any of the Atlas passives were really any good for Beyond. Let's take a little bit of a look at those though, and have a discussion, and then round out our discussion here. Alright. So let's take a look. So first up, we got 3 different clusters which give you Beyond juice on the tree, and they're all on the left side. So the first one I want to talk about here is the Torn Veil cluster. So Torn Veil has the 2 very, very good travel nodes here of Beyond Portal chance. These essentially give you 30% more Beyond Portals. Now, Beyond Portals are essentially going to give you a higher chance to spawn Beyond monsters, which is insane. Now, in addition to that though, they also increase the chance to spawn the Beyond, which after it spawns will turn off all of the extra Beyond monsters, which are a substantial amount of your tainted currency drops. Now, this isn't necessarily bad though, because these 2 Beyond nodes just accelerate your Beyond spawning kind of occurrences. So if you were going to spawn the boss early, you'll just spawn it early, but you'll still get the same amount of loot. It's not reducing the amount of tainted currencies you'll get in any way. It's just accelerating them. And the reason this is good is that there are Underground Sea maps that I did where I didn't spawn the boss, and I could have got even more juice if I just had more monsters to the point where the boss would spawn. And it's these 2 nodes are going to make those maps far, far more rewarding. Almost 30% more rewarding, in fact, which is very, very enticing. If you take a look at the compass, I believe it does have a modifier on here, 25% increase Beyond demon pack size. So it's actually just a 30% more loot multiplier here on these Beyond portals. So if you're running Beyond, it is a no-brainer